Here at the Gale Warden Public Library, we have a special edition coming our way. We remember the legend that is Mike Alft. We have assembled a top-flight panel here. Let's introduce everybody with us.
Mike Bailey.
Mike Bailey, Courier News, long time.
Bill Briscoe, Elgin History Museum.
Great historian.
Elizabeth Marston, Elgin History Museum.
And
Jerry Turnquist.
well, we've assembled you kids because you have known him for so many years. Mike Alft, of course, coming to Elgin in 1950 and making this his hometown. Mike Bailey, Courier News, you're editor from 96 to 2009. You have many stories with Mr. Alft, but you've got the one when you're in college, junior college.
Right.
Tell me that story.
At that time, Elgin Community College didn't have a central campus. They were scattered all over. There were classes at the Old Y and the Renner Hall and Ellis Business College over here at 101 North Spring. And Mike was a civics teacher, and I took civics from him. So it was like the first or second class we had. He told us this story, and I never forgot it. It was that when him and his wife got married, they went shopping, grocery shopping. And peas, a can of peas, they were 2 for 15 cents. And his wife bought 1 can. And he said, "What in the world are you doing?" And he said from that point on, he did all the shopping because he said it was a half a cent that I saved by buying 2 cans.
Yeah.
So I never forgot that story. Be cheap, but don't cheat.
It's a great line.
But in civics, he made civics and politics, local government and things, he made it understandable and actually enjoyable. And it's one of the reasons why I think when I started covering the city of Elgin, I had that base of knowledge that he gave me. And he made that kind of come alive and made you understand what was going on and how it was going on. So he was a great teacher.
That's wonderful. And when you're at the Courier News, you're probably going to him for, give me some background or tell me.
Yeah, every time that anything came up in town, what was that building or who lived there or whatever, you know, we would call Mike, and we would never call his house. We would call the library because he was always at the library.
That's right.
Retired. And he would have these wonderful backstories about who lived there and who developed that property and who moved here from Germany or whatever. And he knew things that I don't think any human being could have ever known about this city. He knew everything about this city. And there was just a rich love of Elgin history. That's what really I remember about it.
That's wonderful. 7 years ago, before we leave you this segment, you had 3 mayors together. You had Mayor Captain, Mayor Schock, and Mayor Mike Alft. That was quite a moment, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. That was the past, the present,
That's
and
wonderful.
what we thought at that time would be the future, which it was. So they all gave a rich perspective about their time as mayor and what the city was like and where they thought it might be going. It was a wonderful program.
That was a very historic piece that's still up on YouTube. So, Mike Bailey, we appreciate that. Bill Briscoe, you're a great
Yes, sir.
historian, and you have countless stories of your work with Mike Alft, don't you?
Well, I did have a lot of work with Mike Alft because I was the only one who had the privilege to co-author a book with him. And so that was a great honor when he asked me to collaborate with him on writing the history of the Elgin National Watch Company.
Wow.
Because, of course, Mr. Alft was very personable and open and as an educator, but he could also get quite intimidating to people at times. And you know, he did have, like all of us, he did have occasionally lose his temper, which he would be. He could be pretty ferocious with. So. But that was a great honor to be asked, and so I worked with him on that for 3 years, and I had the great joy that students never had, and that's that I got to be able to turn work that he had written back to him with corrections on it.
Wow, that's when he got angry at you.
So he was very generous about that kind of thing. So, no,
Wonderful.
he's a great collaborator and a great inspiration and a personal hero of mine, as he turned out.
You worked on other books with him, did you not? Other works?
Well, no, not as authors. You know, we would he'd ask questions about stuff and things like that, but no, not as an author, actually writing a manuscript. Nobody else co-authored with him on a manuscript. Yeah. That's he knew, of course, a ton about the Elgin watch factory and that history, and I knew a lot about the watch industry, and so that's what I brought to the project. But you know, you could not surpass his knowledge of minutia about you know, all the newspaper articles that he had absorbed through the years about the history of the watch company.
That's right, you wrote thousands of Courier News articles.
And his notes, he was that prolific note taker. He'd write on those little slips of paper. And when we started that project, what I did is I went and I took all of his notes. They were in 3 or 4 shoe boxes, and these are little slips of paper. And I photocopied all of them so that I would have those notes at my disposal as we went through it. And I took those and I put them into three-ring binders, 3-inch 3-ring binders. Filled the whole corner of the desk with that stuff. So that was a sign of an illustration of how the very neat and orderly mind of Mike Alft worked.
Wonderful, Bill Briscoe. We appreciate those stories. Liz Marston, even up to recent times at the museum, the History Museum, you worked with Mr. Alft.
Well, of course I worked with Mr. Alft, but he was also my teacher.
Ooh, tell us about that.
In the spring of 1980, I took his econ class at Elgin High, and he had the songs, all the songs that he would sing to help you remember.
Yeah, can you sing one for us now?
No, I can't. No, I can't, but be cheap, don't cheat.
Yeah, that was his classic.
Of course, was one, but then there was, laissez-faire.
Really?
Liiissez. And
That's
you would dance around the room, F-A-I-R-E.
Wonderful, I didn't hear about these stories before.
Somebody else will be able to tell you that better than me.
That's nice.
But, so I had class with him, and of course he was a wonderful teacher, as everybody said. In fact, his presence at Elgin High when I was there in the late 70s, and I graduated in 1980, he was, everybody knew him, and everybody wanted to take his class, and he was very popular and well-loved, even then.
Sure.
But he had started in 53, I think.
Yeah, he was at Dundee Crown.
And 53, and then in 55 he started at Elgin High.
Yeah.
So he had been there a long time at that time.
That's great.
And then I worked with him when I was on the Elgin Historical Society board. Right after graduate school, I served for a year or 2 on the board, and he was on the board at that time also. And then I took the job as museum director in 1998. And I worked with him then, and there was a lot of work to be done with Mike because he wanted a lot of things done at the museum. So we tried to really pay attention, listen to what he was saying about the exhibits, about what the things that he wanted to accomplish, the research. I mean, really, he really guided the whole museum, even though he wasn't on the board at that time, guided it in terms of he knew what he thought the museum should be doing. So that was that's the way he was. So he would come, he would do his research, and then we worked together on, how many 11 different books that he, soft cover books that he published. I mean, he worked on Elgin Time. That was a big book.
He's working with you on those books?
No, on the little books, I would just be assisting.
Yeah.
I'm not writing.
Yeah.
But, we would try to handle all of the office things that he needed done when he was doing his writing, and then publishing.
It was always exciting to see him walk into the museum, was it not? To see
It
him?
was, yes. It was, everywhere he went, it was just Mike.
Yeah, because I know when he was at Elgin High, the kids would say, "I want that teacher," or "That's Mr. Alft."
Right,
In the hallway.
right.
So you were that in the class of 80, you were saying that, weren't
I
you?
was there.
Well, Liz Marston, we appreciate that. Of course, Jerry Turnquist, you are the longest reigning male teacher in U46 history. Who did you edge out to get that achievement?
Well, Mike Alft.
Oh, well.
I remember the day he told me, he said, "Jerry, I keep these records." He said, "They just moved you up a semester more than me." So we got 41 and a
So it was
half.
41 plus for you, 41, and he's like 40 and a half. What a competition that is. That's one of the classic trivia questions of all of Elgin.
I suppose.
Hear the 1-2 punch. And a lot with the historians, almost the 1-2 punch as well, so it's incredible. Tell me how Mike first came into your life.
Well, I wish I would have had him as a student because his reputation was around, but I did get placed in a different teacher's room. But I knew Mike and got stories of him. But early on, probably even the 60s, he gave a bus tour once of Elgin in the school bus. And I signed up for that because I knew how he shared things about Elgin. One of his first books was published, which I picked up at the Joseph Spies Company, Elgin Area Landmarks. So I knew the types of things that he did, and I already had a interest in Elgin history. My father managed the Elgin News Agency and went all the businesses as a kid. So I was interested in Elgin history, and Mike took me to another level, but helped me understand the basis for how so much fit together.
That's great. Yeah, you're reading the papers, and when Dad, you're getting delivered papers, aren't you? And you said you're getting your Elgin history by saying, hey, it's quite a story before you threw it in the porch or whatever.
Well, yeah, but we'd have all the newspapers we'd want.
Yeah, that's right.
All the magazines, all the paperback copies. So our house was kind of like a library anyway. So that's another whole story in my life.
Was there a particular meeting with Mike Alft earlier that you can recall for us here?
No, not at that time. I mean, I got to know him more when I would be doing research at the library, when I really got to know him. And we also served on the library board together. You know, he talked to me one time, you know, Jerry, you spend a lot of time at the library. You might want to run, there's an opening, and I encourage you to do so, to sort of be back for all the time.
Sure.
Then we launched into a whole campaign to buy a new build a new library. That was a lot of work. So
I can imagine.
I was just told to come down and have coffee once a month and go home, but turned out to be a lot more than that.
You did lots of audio history of the city and things like that. You ever lean on him for information?
Yeah, I'd always ask him questions, and whenever he'd answer my questions as fast as he could and as thorough as he could. So I was going to share one other story, or do you want to do it later, about how hard he researches?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was working on, as we all know, the Elgin National Watch Company at its peak had more women than men in the community. And I was trying to work on a story about, well, how many more women are there at some different times? And I know Mike had published one record. He said that this such and such a time, the percentage of women is this and the percentage of men is that. And well, okay, I'm going to find out some specifics here. And I dug into the census records. I asked the staff here, how do you split between men and women? I said, I can't find out how to do that. It doesn't provide that breakdown for me. And Mike was coming by that day. We meet at the microfilm machines all the time. And I said, Mike, how did you get this? How did you find out what the women and the men are in any particular year? You look back and you said, Jerry, I counted all the census. He counted all the women and all the men in the particular years. So that's a dedicated researcher.
Yeah. Oh, Jerry, thanks. Those are great stories. We're also on our second time through. Now, we look to his legacy is tremendous. But Mike Baylor, what do you think Mike Alft would mean to the city of Elgin?
Well, for many years he wrote columns for the Courier, 30-some years, and he wrote literally thousands.
But he kept them all, didn't he? They had big
Kept
book
them all, they're bound, and I believe they're all out in the library if you want to read them. And as I said in another interview, every year he'd come and say, I just don't have any more stories, I just don't think I can do this. And then he'd do another year's worth, and it was just fabulous. I think what Mike did, and what he did for me, was he gave us a sense of place, of what Elgin was like. And in a world, you know, where everything looks like Schomburg and Hoffman Estates, and it's all fast food, and it's all franchises and malls, he made Elgin into a specific place and time, and made you feel like you were part of something special. It may never come again. Cities across the country are not like Elgin used to be, but he made me feel as though I lived in a special place, and that I understood the background, the history, and how I got to where I am today. That's what he did for me, and I think that's what he did for the whole city.
And you're a great writer. You wrote many great books. You probably leaned on him a little bit for that, didn't you?
Yeah, we wrote 2 books. He helped me a lot with Goodbye Elgin High, and we had several conversations down here about that. And I asked him, would I be wrong to say that like the mid-'60s was maybe like the last best time to live in what was Elgin?
Mm-hmm.
And he thought about that for a while, and he said, no, I think that's right. Doesn't mean it was better then or it's worse now. Doesn't mean anything like that. It's just like the traditional Elgin that we always remember started to kind of evolve in the mid to late 60s and early 70s.
Mr. Alft, in an interview we saw somewhere, he said, everybody asked him what time period would you live in, and he said, I think I like 1900 to 1910. Do you remember that story he told? He liked it because the city was just becoming real prominent in their great future run.
Yeah, we had that conversation too, about the best time to live in Elgin was, and then we would discuss why that was better than this, and but I like electric lights, Mike,
Right. He liked
flush toilets, come on now.
He liked the 08 Cubs, so he said that's different.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Mike Bailey, appreciate all the work you've done over the years. We We loved your books and all your good work. Bill Riska, now you got your thoughts on what Mr. Alft might mean to our city.
A little bit, maybe a little bit different spin, because everybody knows about all of his accomplishments as an educator and so on and so forth. But I have always thought of him as one of the most extraordinary minds that I've ever met. I mean, just think of what that fellow's brain was capable of doing and what he did with it.
No question.
You know, and how does a mind like that, you know, come to be? Because how does it mature and develop into that? Where he had that encyclopedic recall of so many things, and not only was it bolstered by this avalanche of Elgin-related trivia, but the gleanings of those 3,000 books that he had read, and his ability. We were talking about something about, you know, the Civil War once, and he said, well, I've read some 200 books on the Civil War and 80 on Lincoln alone, not included. And he was able to distinguish between the author's bents on different topics with amazing clarity. You know, you read about the same topic by different authors, you don't always recall who said which of what and that. So his mind was just
Phenomenal.
phenomenal, yes, is the word, yes. Just that part always fascinated me about him. Like, how do you do that?
Yeah, no doubt. Along those same lines, now you were class of 80. On that first day of your day in class with Mr. Alft, you would stand up and say your name, and forever he would remember it, wouldn't he? He would bring it right back to you.
Yeah,
like a Pokemon.
he didn't remember my name.
You know,
Maybe he did in class, but later on, he had no idea.
well, that was probably 10 years later, wasn't it?
Or 20, yeah.
Oh, 20.
Right.
Well, according to all folklore, every new member, every first day of the school year,
He did. He
Did
did.
do that.
Yes. But I want to tell you what a generous storyteller he was. Because really that is, I think it's his gift to the city, is his ability to take all of that research and put it into a story that he tells, whether it's in the newspaper or in a booklet or even in person. He did many, I mean, thousands and thousands of speaking engagements. And then to leave that indexed, he also indexed all of it so that you could find it again and use it to teach future people to our city. I think really that is what he did. It's not only that he was the storyteller, but his generosity in imparting that information. All of that he took from the Courier, all of that he took from the books that he read, and then writing it also, you know, cemented it for himself in terms of the story. He was also really good at the cemetery walk.
oh yeah, he's from the 90s till like 2010, he's doing those characters.
Yeah, he did. A guy on Facebook said, I think he did 19 characters.
I did, I was listening.
Was that
yeah.
19?
Somewhere from like 94 to 2010, yes.
Yes,
He's
yes.
along those lines of doing that year
So
after year.
he had so many gifts. I mean, not only the photographic memory, but his ability to empathize with people, to empathize in the past and understand the situations of the past, and then to bring them up in a way that's relevant today.
Proving he could be a great actor as well with that.
He's a great actor, a great speaker. The guy, he could write.
That's wonderful. Thanks. Now, Terry, turn question. We always had you as the 1-2 punch. Mike Alft 1, and you were 2. That's historically, in my time in town, which dates back to 1990, you kids have been the 1-2 punch. So I know you can tell us what he means to the city of Elgin.
Well, let's say one thing that doesn't mean is that I would ever even come close to Mike Alft and what he was, what he did, and everything. I might be a second, but down there, way, way, way down. And I clarify that to people a lot of times and say, "Oh, you're taking over for Mike Alft." I says, "Taking over? How could anybody take over?" But being the person that goes last, I can share some of the same things like Bill. I remember Mike's photographic memory. Whenever I'd ask him, people ask me things about Elgin history, I'll get back to you. I got to look at my notes. So that I don't have all that in my head. And like Nick, I did join the Golden K Kiwanis, and we meet every week, and there's various weeks we don't have a speaker. Mike Alft was the
Always
member
fill
there, and he'd always fill in. He didn't look up any notes or anything like that.
Yeah.
He just got up and went on and spoke about this topic or that.
That's
and,
great.
You know, shared one story.
And you always got a half cup of coffee, didn't you?
Yes, well, that group is known for half a donut.
Half a donut.
Yeah, we aren't
I
that
know.
far, but the donuts are big, and so you get a half a donut. But you can have as much as you want, by the way. So I remember those aspects of Mike. But like Mike Bailey said, he really left a legacy of, you know, all the books, all the research, all he's done. It gave us a sense of place. And while I've had various aspects and other opportunities in life to learn and experience and learn about Elgin growing up here and talking to longtime business owners and that, nothing would really tie it all together or help me really understand the big picture and the parts I would miss, like the research Mike gave us and left for us. So, yeah, Mike's not, you know, with us any longer, but we've got quite a legacy of articles in the Courier and books and publications and cemetery walk trails. So much to remember Mike by.
I think the Gale Borden Library has now his writing out every book he read. I believe they have that listing now, don't they, here?
I know they have.
They have a listing of every book you read?
Yeah.
Really?
No, he had that. He would show that. He had
Yes,
that
he
because
did
we did
have
a
it.
sequence. I think that became part of the library sequence in recent times.
Well, he was adding to that right up.
Yeah.
Yeah, right at the very end.
Yeah.
Up to the very, very end.
He was a great
yes.
reader, no question
Yes.
about that.
So they might have had an earlier incarnation of it.
And again, he moved in with family back in when he left in 2017, April 2017. So that's how we lost him from here. But he still kept in touch, did he not? You guys
He did.
kept in touch with him.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
It's all good. It's well, this is a great panel. We'll get together every week. Is that all right?
Sure.
Mike Bailey, we appreciate all your stories. Thank you, sir. All your great books. Bill Briska, you know everything, don't you? Class of 80. Liz Marston, we love your museum, of course. And Jerry, we see you all over you. We always appreciate all your great work. So we appreciate you guys coming together and our remembrance. That is our remembrance of the legend that passed away November 22 at age 96. He lived in Elgin from 1950 onward. That's our remembrance from Mike Alft.